Dinner was hot, but the room felt refrigerated. Haley wouldn't meet my eyes, and I already knew why. Betrayal doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes it comes plated, steaming, set neatly on a table like nothing's wrong. I shut the front door with my shoulder, boots still gritty from attic dust and condenser grime. 12 hours of HVAC work had my hands smelling like metal and coil cleaner. I expected the usual. Haley calling from the kitchen, asking about my day, acting like the world wasn't made of cracks. Instead, the house was too quiet. The table was set like a picture. Candle, 2 plates, food that looked like it had been timed. Haley sat with her fingers twisted around her ring, spinning it and stopping, like she was trying to grind the metal into something soft. She didn't stand, didn't smile, didn't even fake it. "Hey," I said. "Hey." Her voice was careful, rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror until it didn't shake. I hung my jacket on the chair slowly and watched her the way I watch a compressor that keeps short-cycling, waiting for the moment it proves what it is. "Are you hungry?" she asked, even though the question didn't belong in the room. I sat down, not because I wanted dinner, but because I wanted the truth to have nowhere to hide. "I'm fine," I said. She swallowed, eyes fixed on the plate like it could save her. Her knee bounced under the table. "Ring. Stop. Ring. Stop. I need to talk," she said. "Like adults." That phrase used to mean respect. Tonight it meant she wanted to control the story. I nodded once. "Talk." She inhaled like she was about to jump into cold water. "I've been seeing other people." There it was. No dramatic pause. No tears. Just a statement placed on the table between the plates. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. Not because it didn't hit, but because I'd already been collecting the pieces she thought she'd hidden. Odd receipts she couldn't explain. Photos cropped too tight. Work stories that didn't line up with timestamps. Little slips that only look small if you're not paying attention. She kept going. I feel like the marriage has been a cage. A cage. Like I'd locked the door and thrown away the key. She looked up finally, trying to read my face, trying to find the angle that would make her feel less guilty. "I need freedom. I need to grow. Personal growth." That's what she called it when she wanted to cut the rope and still keep the safety net. I let the silence stretch. Silence makes liars uncomfortable. Silence makes people fill space with the truth they didn't mean to reveal. "So," I said calm, "you're leaving." Her shoulders loosened like she'd been waiting for me to fight. "I think it's best if we do this civilized." Civilized. Another word with a blade inside it. She stood and walked to the hallway, already moving like she'd decided the night belonged to her. A bag was waiting by the door, packed ahead of time. That told me everything I needed to know about how long she'd been living somewhere else in her head. At the threshold she turned, not soft, not sorry. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I held her gaze. "You already did." Her jaw tightened. Then she left. I watched her taillights fade through the window until the street went dark again. The food sat untouched, cooling into something I didn't recognize. The house didn't just get quiet after that. It went cold. Control isn't a mood, it's a process. I slept maybe 2 hours, not because I was pacing or breaking things, but because my brain kept running diagnostics like it always does. When a system fails, you don't stare at the smoke. You shut it down before it spreads. Morning came gray. The bed was too wide and too quiet, but I didn't stand there feeling sorry for myself. I got up, showered, pulled on work clothes, and made coffee I barely tasted. Then I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and a legal pad. Step 1. Stop the bleeding. I called the bank while the line was still short. Froze the joint accounts. Changed access. Set alerts. The woman on the phone asked if everything was okay. "No," I said, "but it will be." Step 2. Get a professional who stays cold. Alyssa Price answered on the second ring. Her voice was sharp, efficient, like she'd heard every excuse people used to justify doing damage. "I need representation," I told her. "Separation started last night. I want it to be clean." "You have kids?" she asked. "No." "Good. Any business interests?" An HVAC company. Payroll runs weekly. Then we move fast, she said. I'll send an intake form. Do not argue with her. Do not agree to anything by text. And don't move money you can't justify later. That last line stuck. Courts don't care how angry you were. They care what you did. I texted my operations lead, Mike. I need flexibility this month. Personal situation. I'll keep the work covered. He called immediately. You okay? I'm functional, I said. That's what matters. He didn't press. That's why he was good. Next, inventory. I opened a folder on my laptop and started building a map of my life like I was tracing duct runs in an attic. Every line, every branch, every connection that could be used against me if I got sloppy. House, deed, mortgage, taxes, insurance, debts, cards, vehicle note, business line, business, accounts, payroll provider, vendor payments, contracts, retirement, statements, contributions, dates. Anything that had a number attached got a file and a timestamp. By mid-morning, Haley started texting like she was managing a project. Let's not make this ugly. We can be fair if you just cooperate. Don't freeze things. I have bills too. Fair. Cooperate. Words people use when they want you to hand them a lever. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't ask why. I replied once. Direct anything legal to my attorney. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then wow. So that's how you're going to be. I stared at the screen and felt something settle in my chest. Not sadness. Clarity. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about leverage. And the only way to beat leverage is structure. I folded the legal pad in half, slid it into the folder, and headed to my first service call. Out in the world, systems still needed fixing. People still needed heat. My hands still knew what to do. And that helped. Because by the end of that week, my life was reduced to folders, account numbers, and dates, boring, disciplined work. But for the first time since Thursday night, I could feel the ground under my feet again. When someone wants to leave, they still might want to. Mediation was in a beige office suite that smelled like stale coffee and printer heat. Neutral colors. Neutral faces. A room designed to make people think they're being reasonable while they sharpen knives under the table. Haley showed up polished, hair perfect, blazer fitted, nails done. The kind of new beginning look that's supposed to make a man feel like he's already lost. She didn't look at me like a wife. She looked at me like a negotiation. Her attorney opened with a soft voice. Amicable, equitable, moving forward. Haley nodded at all the right times, like she was listening to a podcast. Then she spoke. I gave him my best years, she said, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. I supported him while he built his business. I deserve compensation. Compensation. Like marriage was a job you clock in and out of. Like betrayal was just a career change with a severance package. Alyssa didn't react. She wrote something down, calm as a surgeon. I kept my hands on the table, steady. I didn't give Haley a flinch to feed on. Alyssa asked, You left the marital home voluntarily on Thursday night, correct? Haley's eyes flicked. Annoyed. Yes, but... And you stated to him you were seeing other people, Alyssa continued. Haley's smile tightened. That's personal. It's a timeline, Alyssa said. We're not here for poetry. The mediator tried to soften it. Let's focus on resolution. Haley cut in, still smiling. Resolution is me not being punished for choosing myself. There it was again. That clean little phrase that made betrayal sound like therapy. I finally spoke, just enough. Freedom isn't a bill you send to someone else. She leaned back like she'd expected yelling. Not a sentence that ended. Her attorney slid numbers across the table. A proposed split that leaned her way, a request for support that didn't match reality, and a line item that basically translated to pay me because I'm leaving. Alyssa didn't raise her voice. She just took the paper, read it once, and set it down like it was contaminated. No, she said. Not based on these facts. Not based on her choices. Haley's eyes sharpened. So you're going to make this hard. I looked at her, steady. You made it hard Thursday. I'm just making it clean. Her smile cracked for half a second. That was when she started fishing for emotion, bringing up old arguments, implying I was cold, acting like my calm was cruel. But I knew that trap. If I got loud, she'd call it abuse. If I begged, she'd call it weakness. If I defended myself, she'd twist it into guilt. So I didn't give her anything. Minutes dragged. The mediator kept trying to stitch together a deal out of frayed rope. Haley got bored when she realized she couldn't pull me into a scene. She stood abruptly. "This is pointless." Her attorney started to speak, but she was already grabbing her bag. As she walked out, she tossed a look over her shoulder. Smug. Like she had a move ready. Like this was just round one and she'd brought something uglier for round two. Alyssa waited until the door shut. "She's not here to settle," she said. "She's here to test you." I nodded. Then we stopped being testable. That night I went to my garage. The air smelled like oil, metal, and old sawdust. Tools hung where they always had. Concrete under my boots. The only place in the house that still felt honest. I pulled out a storage bin and started building an evidence system the same way I build a job plan. Simple, labeled, impossible to argue with later. Folders, dates, screenshots, statements, logs. Not for revenge, for reality. Because if Haley wanted to turn my life into a fight, she was going to learn something she'd forgotten. I work for a living. I solve problems. And I don't get too messy. Grief and money attract the same kind of attention. It was late, past the hour when decent people stop calling unless something's wrong. I was still in the garage, laptop open, paperwork stacked, when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. "Matthews? Mr. Matthews?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Tara Caldwell. I'm the executor for your uncle, Raymond Matthews." The name hit first. Not money, not legal. Just my uncle, steady hands, steady voice, the man who taught me to measure twice and never guess when precision matters. My throat tightened once. I swallowed it down. "Okay. I'm sorry for your loss," she said. And it didn't sound scripted. "I need you to meet me first thing tomorrow morning. There are documents that need to be handled correctly." Handled how? There was a pause, the kind people take when they're about to change the temperature in the room. "Your uncle's estate is substantial," she said. "Approximately $13 million. I didn't laugh. I didn't say what, like a movie character. I just sat still and let the number land. 13 million. My uncle lived quietly. Old truck, small house, no flash. He spent money like it was something you respected, not something you threw around." Tara continued. "It's structured through a trust. You are the beneficiary." The garage felt narrower, like the air had less room to move. I set my phone on speaker and rubbed the bridge of my nose. "I didn't know. Most people don't," she said. "He wanted it that way." I stared at the labeled folders on my workbench, divorce, accounts, mediation notes. My life is already in pieces, and now someone just dropped a new weight onto the pile. Tara's tone went firmer. "I'm going to be very direct, Mr. Matthews. You're in a divorce process, yes?" "Yes." "Then you need to keep this separate," she said. "No mixed transfers. No casual deposits. No paying joint bills from trust funds. No shortcuts." I listened harder than I ever listened on a rooftop during a storm. "One mistake," she said, "and you turn clean inheritance into an argument. People will claim it was shared, used, relied upon. You don't want that." My jaw set. "Understood. I'll give you the contact information for the accountant who manages the trust's reporting. You'll also need to provide your attorney's details. I want a clean chain from day one." "Send everything," I said. "Tomorrow at 9, she added. "Bring ID. And try not to discuss this with anyone until it's secured." I looked at the empty side of the house through the garage door window. Haley's side. The side that had walked out with a packed bag and a threat dressed up as civilized. I didn't have to imagine how this would go. I could already hear her voice pretending to care, already seeing her eyes calculating. Tara was still talking, address, suite number, what to sign. But my mind was already moving into the only mode that mattered now. Containment. Because this wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was a divorce with a target on it. When the call ended, I sat there for a long minute, phone dark in my hand, the garage humming with quiet. I thought of my uncle, how he'd taught me discipline without speeches, how he'd look at me now and expect the same. I closed my laptop, stacked the folders, and locked the garage door like it meant something. Tomorrow I'll take the papers, and I'd fight for two things at once: the outcome and the future Haley no longer got to touch. When the numbers get big, entitlement gets louder. Haley called 2 days after the executor meeting, like she'd been waiting for the right moment to sound human again. Her voice came soft. "I heard about your uncle. I'm sorry, truly." There was a beat where she expected me to say something tender back. I didn't. "Thanks," I said, and right on cue her tone shifted, subtle, but I caught it. The sympathy was just the opening bid. "So," she continued, careful like she was stepping around a wire, "I'm assuming that changes things." "No," I said, a small laugh like I was being cute. "Come on, 13 million? Matt, that's separate." I cut in. "It's trust. It's not marital." She exhaled like I was the one being unreasonable. "Courts can be flexible when the amount is big enough. You know that." That told me everything. She wasn't planning to accept the law. She was planning to test whether I'd slip. I kept my voice level. "Don't count my uncle's money." "Wow," she said, offense loaded and ready. "You're really going to turn into this guy." "This guy?" I asked. "The guy who doesn't get robbed twice?" Silence. Then her tone sharpened, the mask slipping. "I built a life with you. You walked out of it," I said. "Thursday night. Packed bag and all." She didn't deny it. She pivoted. "We can settle this if you stop being stubborn," she said. "We can keep it civilized." There it was again, civilized, always spoken like a warning. "I'll let my attorney respond," I said, and ended the call. I didn't sit there stewing. I moved. That afternoon I drove to the bank Tara recommended, the one used by trustees and paperwork that doesn't leave room for oops. The manager met me in a glass office, mid-50s, clean suit, eyes that said he'd seen plenty of people ruin themselves with sloppy choices. "I need dedicated accounts," I told him. "Trust only. No commingling. Full documentation." He nodded once. "We'll do it clean." We opened what needed opening. Every form signed, copied, scanned. I asked questions until there weren't any left to ask. The manager printed confirmations and stamped them like the stamp mattered, which it did. Before I left the parking lot, I emailed copies to Tara, then to Alyssa. Then I saved them in 3 places, because I wasn't going to lose my future to a missing PDF. Haley tried again the next mediation attempt. Same polished look, same practiced voice. But now the smile was tighter, impatient. "I'm not saying I deserve all of it," she said, hands folded like she was being generous. "But I contributed to you being who you are. Your connections, your stability. That inheritance didn't happen in a vacuum." Alyssa didn't blink. "Inheritance is not earned by a spouse's vibe. It's traced by documents." Haley's eyes snapped to me. "So you're just going to hoard it?" I leaned forward, just enough to make the air change. "I'm going to protect it. There's a difference." Her attorney tried a new angle, talking about lifestyle expectations, shared plans, marital partnership. Words meant to smear the lines until my uncle's gift looked like community property. Alyssa laid out the timeline like a blueprint. Date of death. Date trust established. I was notified. Date accounts opened. 0 transfers into marital accounts. 0 payments made on joint obligations. A clean, boring trail that didn't care about anyone's feelings. Haley's face hardened when she realized she couldn't talk her way around paper. "This is unbelievable," she said, rising from her chair. "You're acting like I'm some stranger." "You made yourself one," I said. That one landed. I saw it in her eyes, the flash of anger, the moment where she wanted a reaction she could use. But I didn't give her heat. I gave her the final. The mediator tried to keep her seated. She shook her head, grabbed her bag, and walked out like she wanted the hallway to hear her heels. When the door shut, Alyssa looked at me. She's going to escalate. I nodded. Good. Then we'll meet her where she lives. On my drive home, I didn't feel relieved. I felt focused, because now I understood the shape of the threat. Haley wasn't leaving to be free. She was leaving to see what she could take with her. And I wasn't going to make the mistake she was hoping for. Evidence beats emotion in the same room every time. Haley didn't wait long to try the next angle. That's the thing about people who feel entitled. When one door closes, they start looking for a window to pry open. Alyssa called me early. They filed. On what? I asked, already knowing it wouldn't be clean. Emergency motion, she said. They're claiming the inheritance should be treated as marital. Arguments are connections built during the marriage and shared expectations. They want pressure, fast hearing, fast fear. I stared at the wall in my office, the one with the service schedule pinned up, names and time slots like life was still normal. Okay, I said. What do you need from me? Nothing new, Alyssa replied. Just keep doing what you've been doing. Don't move money. Don't text her anything you'd regret reading out loud in court. That last part was always the trap. People lose cases because they can't control their thumbs. The hearing landed a week later. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was fluorescent lights, wood benches, and tired faces. An assembly line for bad decisions. Haley sat at the other table in a fitted suit, hair perfect again. She didn't look nervous. She looked like she believed the room owed her something. Her attorney spoke first, voice smooth. Your Honor, we believe this inheritance is intertwined with the marital partnership. Alyssa stood when it was our turn and didn't waste time on speeches. She handed up exhibits like she was stacking steel. Trust documents, she said. Beneficiary designation. Date-stamped correspondence from executor. Separate accounts opened immediately. No transfers into marital accounts. No commingling. Full tracing. She walked the judge through it the way I walk a customer through a diagnosis. Show the failure point, show the proof, show the fix. Haley's attorney tried to pull it back into feelings. But Mrs. Matthews supported him for years. She contributed to the stability that made this possible. The judge didn't even look impressed. Just tired. Alyssa kept her voice even. Support is not ownership. The law is clear. Inheritance remains separate unless commingled. And here, Your Honor, the records show discipline from day one. The judge flipped through the pages, eyes moving fast, then asked one question that mattered. Did any portion of the inheritance enter a joint account? No, Your Honor, Alyssa said. The judge looked up. Any portion used to pay joint expenses? No. Any mixing at all? Alyssa's answer was simple. None. The judge nodded once like a man finishing a checklist. Motion denied. Just like that. No gavel slam. No dramatic stare down. Just a clean denial that turned Haley's lottery ticket into a dead piece of paper. Haley's eyes locked on me across the room, and what I saw wasn't grief or regret. It was frustration. The kind you see when someone walks up to a vending machine convinced it owes them a snack, and the machine doesn't move. Outside the courtroom, Alyssa didn't celebrate. She just tightened the strap on her bag. Good result, she said. But don't get comfortable. I won't, I told her. She paused. People like her don't stop when they lose once. They change tactics. They try something that hits your daily life instead of the big prize. I nodded because that made sense. If you can't get the money, you attack the man who protects it. That night, back in my garage, I updated my system again. New folder, new date, copies of the denial order, notes on what they argued and what they failed to prove. Boring work. Disciplined work. The kind of work that wins. And as I shut the laptop, I felt it. Quiet but real. Haley wasn't done. She was just done playing fair. When someone can't win fairly, they try to break your day-to-day. The envelope showed up on a Tuesday like it belonged there. No stamp, no return address, just my name printed clean, left on the mat like a warning disguised as mail. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a cheap flash drive. The paper was a screenshot, supposedly from one of my business accounts, showing balances that didn't match reality. Numbers inflated in the wrong places, dates cropped, the kind of proof that only works on someone who doesn't know what they're looking at. At the bottom, a line typed in all caps, "See you in court." I didn't touch the flash drive. I didn't plug it into anything. I slid it back into the envelope like it was contaminated, took photos for the record, and drove straight to Alyssa's office. She didn't look surprised. That annoyed me more than if she had. "You did the right thing," she said, putting the envelope into an evidence bag. "We'll have it scanned safely. But I'm guessing this isn't the only move. How fast can she file?" I asked. Alyssa gave me a look that meant too fast. We didn't even get to finish the coffee in her lobby. Her assistant stepped in. "They filed an emergency motion." Alyssa stood up. "Of course they did. The filing claimed hidden assets. Fraud. Business accounts concealed from the marital estate. They attached the screenshot like it was holy scripture and asked the court for immediate restraint. And the judge, because judges sometimes act first to prevent damage, granted a temporary freeze until the claims could be sorted. Temporary. But temporary doesn't mean small when payroll hits Friday. By the time I got back to my truck, my phone was already blowing up. "Mike, payroll isn't going through." Tech number 3. My card got declined at the gas station. Office admin. The vendor payment bounced. They're threatening to stop deliveries. I sat behind the wheel, jaw tight, feeling the pressure behind my eyes. Not panic, not rage, just the cold fact of being trapped in someone else's game. Haley wasn't trying to win in court that day. She was trying to choke my business in real time. I called Mike. "Gather everyone at the shop," I said. "I'll be there in 20. When I walked into the bay, my guys were standing around with that look the crews get when the paycheck becomes uncertain. Half loyal, half ready to protect their families. I climbed onto the small platform by the parts cage so they could all see me. "This is getting handled," I said. "You're getting paid. If the bank doesn't release it in time, I'll write checks myself and we'll document every cent. Nobody's losing their rent money because of my personal mess." One of the younger techs asked, "Is the company in trouble?" "No," I said, and I meant it. "Someone's trying to make it look that way." They didn't need details. They needed confidence. So I gave it to them the way a man gives a steady hand to a shaking ladder, firm, no extra talk. That night wasn't sleep. It was war work. I pulled every log I could. Bank alerts, accounting exports, server access history, email forwarding rules. Anything that could show where the leak came from and when. Because forged documents don't appear out of nowhere. Somebody has to touch the system. Somebody has to know what to fake. At 2:17 a.m., my eyes caught something that didn't belong. A login attempt on our cloud storage. Timestamp, 1:13 a.m. IP address. Not mine. Not the shop. Not any of my techs. I ran it through an IP lookup and got a location. An apartment complex across town. I didn't have to guess which one. Haley had texted me her new address when she wanted her mail forwarded. She'd done it like it was routine. The address matched. My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was an intrusion. It was sabotage. I took screenshots of everything. Exported logs. Saved them to an external drive. Printed copies. Because paper doesn't accidentally delete. Then I sent the package to Alyssa before the sun came up. Subject line, login trail. Her reply came 10 minutes later. Good. Don't touch anything else. We're going to bury this. I stared at that sentence and felt the first real shift since Thursday dinner. Haley thought she was clever, but she'd left a trail, digital, timestamped, factual. And facts don't care how confident you look in mediation. They just sit there waiting for court. Accountability is watching the lie collapse in slow motion. The deposition room was smaller than I expected. Beige walls, a long table, a little recorder sitting there like a witness that doesn't blink. No judgment, no audience, just consequences lined up in chairs. Haley walked in like she still owned the narrative. Hair done, outfit sharp, that same practiced expression, half bored, half superior, like the whole thing was an inconvenience she'd outgrow. She smiled when she saw me, not warm, not friendly, A challenge. Alyssa didn't react. She just opened her binder and clicked her pen once. The court reporter introduced herself, swore everyone in, explained the rules. Haley nodded along like she'd already heard it on a podcast about healing. Then questions started, soft at first. Mrs. Matthews, Alyssa said, did you provide the screenshot to your attorney? Haley didn't hesitate. No. Have you ever accessed Mr. Matthews' business accounts without authorization? No. Have you ever accessed his cloud storage? Haley gave a small laugh. No. I wouldn't even know how. She glanced at me like she expected me to crack. I didn't move. Alyssa let the lie sit there for a moment, clean and on the record. That's what good attorneys do. Let someone commit before they show the trap. Then she slid a piece of paper across the table. Exhibit A, Alyssa said. This is the emergency filing your counsel submitted. That screenshot is attached. You're saying you had nothing to do with it. Haley's eyes skimmed it. Correct. Alyssa nodded like she accepted that. Okay. She reached into the binder again. Exhibit B, she said, and the tone changed. Metadata report. Haley's smile stayed in place, but I saw the first blink that wasn't casual. Alyssa continued, steady. This report shows the image was created as a composite. Multiple layers, different source files. It was not a direct export from a bank portal. Haley's attorney shifted in his chair. Just a small movement, but it was the first sign of discomfort. Haley lifted her chin. That doesn't prove anything. You're right, Alyssa said. By itself, it doesn't. She turned another page. Exhibit C, she said. Authentication trail from the bank. Haley's eyes narrowed. Alyssa spoke like she was reading a service manual, dry, precise. The account balances shown in the screenshot do not match any historical balance on the dates displayed. The bank confirms the numbers do not exist in their ledger. Haley's smile thinned. Alyssa didn't stop. Exhibit D, she said, and I saw it, the printed log sheet with the timestamp. Cloud access logs, Alyssa continued. This shows a login attempt at 1:13 a.m. on November 18th from an IP address registered to your apartment complex network. Haley's face tightened at the edges, still trying to hold it. That's not possible, she said quickly. People share networks. Anyone could. Alyssa raised one finger, not rude, just controlled. We're not finished. She slid another page forward. Exhibit E, Alyssa said. Two-factor authentication record. The login attempt triggered a verification code. That code was sent to the phone number on file for the account. She looked up, which was Mr. Matthews' number. Haley breathed out like she'd been hit with a gust of cold air. And here, Alyssa added, is Exhibit F phone records showing your device was in the same cell tower radius as that IP source at 1:13 a.m. Haley's attorney leaned in and whispered. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the sound. We're in trouble. Haley's eyes flicked to him, then back to Alyssa. This is insane. Alyssa didn't argue. She just kept walking forward. Mrs. Matthews, she said. You testified under oath that you don't know how to access cloud storage. Yes. Alyssa slid one more paper across, calm, almost polite. Exhibit G, she said. A screenshot from your own phone backup, captured during discovery, showing a file manager application open, with a folder titled Business and an image file matching the composite screenshot. The room changed, not with shouting, with gravity. Haley stared at the page too long. The smirk didn't just fade, it died, like a light cutting out. Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since Thursday dinner, she looked small, not weak, but cornered. Like she realized the story she'd been driving couldn't survive contact with recorded reality. Alyssa's voice stayed even. Did you create this composite image? Yes or no? Haley swallowed. I don't remember. Alyssa nodded once, like she'd expected that exact dodge. So your answer is you're not denying it anymore. Haley's attorney cleared his throat. Objection to form. Noted, the reporter said, typing without looking up. Silence filled the space between keystrokes. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Because watching a lie collapse is its own kind of justice, slow, quiet, and irreversible. Alyssa closed the binder halfway. "One more question," she said. Haley's eyes lifted. Tired now. Defensive. "If the court finds this evidence was falsified," Alyssa said, "are you aware that you may be subject to sanctions and referral for fraud review?" Haley didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice that wasn't polished anymore, she said, "Yes." And that was the moment the power balance finally shifted. Not because I yelled, because the truth showed up with receipts. Real justice looks like a judge saying no. The sanctions hearing didn't feel dramatic. It felt clinical, like a room designed to cut away nonsense. Haley sat at the far table with a different posture than before. No smugness, no shine, just tension held behind her eyes like she was trying not to blink too much. Her attorney talked first, of course, tried to frame it as confusion, a misunderstanding, a mistake that happened during a stressful process. Alyssa didn't let it breathe. She walked the judge through the chain like it was a straight line. Forged composite, false balances, cloud logs, IP match, authentication trail, cell location, phone backup image. One fact stacked on the next until the lie had nowhere to stand. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I'm lifting the freeze effective immediately," he said, and that sentence alone felt like oxygen returning to my lungs. Then he looked directly at Haley. "Submitting falsified evidence is a serious matter," he said. "This court will not reward it." He ordered her to pay my attorney fees tied to the emergency filings and the disruption. He issued sanctions. He referred the falsification for further review, words that didn't sound loud, but carried weight. Haley's face didn't crack into tears. It tightened, like she was trying to hold her pride together with thread. It didn't work. Outside the courtroom, I made one call, "Mike. Freeze is lifted," I said. "Push payroll." On the other end, I heard him exhale. About damn time. The final divorce hearing came after that, and it wasn't a fight anymore. It was a cleanup. The judge confirmed what the law already said. The inheritance stayed separate because it had been kept separate. No commingling. No mixed transfers. Clean tracing from day one. The business accounts were restored fully. The court addressed the damage from the freeze, and the civil judgment hit Haley where she tried to hurt me, in numbers and obligations she couldn't talk her way out of. Then the judge dissolved the marriage. No speech, no moral lesson, just a final gavel strike that sounded like a door closing for good. When I walked out, the air outside the courthouse felt colder than it should have, but it also felt clean. That's what surprised me most. Not relief. Clean. I sold the old house. Not out of bitterness, out of respect for reality. Too many echoes in those walls. Too many places where I could picture Thursday dinner sitting untouched. I moved into a smaller place closer to the shop. Fewer rooms. Less noise. More control. The inheritance stayed untouched inside the trust, growing steadily the way my uncle intended. No drama. No emotional spending. No need to prove anything to anyone. Haley's world shrank the way it does when consequences finally stop being theoretical. Smaller apartment. More shifts. Payments ordered by a court that didn't care about her best year's speech. She still had her freedom, but now she had to carry it. People asked what justice felt like. Guys at the shop. A couple friends who'd heard through the grapevine and expected a movie answer. I told them the truth. "It's not fireworks," I said. "It's paperwork. It's a calm courtroom. It's the moment a judge says no and means it." And at night, when the day finally shut down and the shop lights clicked off one by one, I'd sit in my new place and feel the quiet. Not lonely, earned, because she didn't just leave me. She tried to take my life apart and sell the pieces. And in the end, all she proved was this. A man who stays disciplined can't be stolen from twice.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.